Everyone. It looks like we have a number of folks joining us, so I hope everyone who was wishing to join has done so. So we'll get started. My name is Kim Culver. I'm a registered dietitian and board certified specialist in oncology nutrition. I'll be joined throughout the evening from my colleagues around the state to share several videos that detail some savvy shopping tips, including a grocery store tour, and a few different budget-friendly and nutritious recipe demos. Tips for healthy survivorship, as well as modifications for any lingering treatment side effects, will be shared throughout as well. We ask that any questions that you have, that you please put them in the Q&A feature, and we'll have a live Q&A session at the end to answer all of your questions. So let's start with our Savvy Shopping video. That's presented by dietitians Courtney Malcher, Courtney McGowan, and Molly Stryker. And they do cover a good amount of information in the video, so I do suggest, if you don't already, please grab a pen and paper to take some notes.
Hello, all of you amazing cancer survivors and caregivers. My name is Courtney McGowan. Hello, all of you amazing cancer survivors and caregivers. My name is Courtney McGowan.
I'm Courtney Malcher.
And I'm Molly Stryker. And we're the registered dietitians with Smilo Cancer Care Centers.
We are all certified specialists in oncology nutrition and are honored to be with you today to discuss savvy shopping for survivors, eating healthy on a budget. Given the topic, we figured what better place to start this discussion than at the grocery store.
Cancer survivorship focuses on the health and well-being of a person with cancer from the time of diagnosis through treatment and beyond. In the course of this video, we'll walk you through the main sections of the grocery store while talking about healthy eating for cancer survivors, including tips for budget-friendly selections as we go.
Shall we get started? Most grocery stores have you enter through the produce section, so let's start there.
Welcome to the produce section. One thing to focus on for healthy eating and cancer survivorship is to include a wide variety of colors from your fruits and vegetables. Plant-based foods are rich in vitamins, minerals, and fiber and get their colors from something called phytonutrients. Eating a variety of phytonutrients gives our body the fuel it needs to fend off cancer and other diseases by strengthening our immune system, reducing inflammation, and strengthening our healthy cells. One look around the produce aisle and you can see all of the color options. When we think about making these choices on a budget, there are many strategies to use. First, shop for produce that's in season or on sale. Grocery stores typically do a great job labeling their sale items. And as I'm sure you're aware, there will be even more variety in the summer months to come. Farmers markets and CSAs, or community-supported agriculture, may be another option for good prices on in-season produce. You can also consider buying the foods in season and freezing them to eat throughout the year. Or plant your own garden at home, be it in the ground or in pots and containers on your patio. Another strategy to keep costs down is to choose from frozen, dried, or even canned options if the variety of fresh choices are lacking or are too expensive. Just make sure that the canned or dried fruit are packaged in their own juice and without added sugar, which is clear on the label. It's well labeled in juice. And choose canned and frozen vegetables packaged without added salt or sauces, since these can often add unwanted sodium and fat. Frozen options can also offer a lot of color within that one bag, which is a nice variety. Also, to keep costs down, know that the produce you buy does not need to be organic. The American Institute for Cancer Research's third expert report found little scientific evidence indicating that organic foods can lower cancer risk. But there is a lot of evidence supporting the more general idea that eating a diet high in fruits and vegetables is beneficial, whether they're produced organically or conventionally. Bottom line, don't let higher prices or lower availability of organic foods keep you from reaping the benefits of high fruit and vegetable intake. Another point worth mentioning here is that these fruits and vegetables can be a significant source of fiber for your diet. While a high fiber diet is great for helping alleviate constipation and for many health concerns, including heart disease, diabetes, and some cancers, a low fiber diet may be necessary in other cancer types, after some surgeries, or if you're experiencing diarrhea. If you've been told to follow a low-fiber diet by a doctor or dietitian, it would be best to choose cooked and canned fruits and vegetables and avoiding gas-forming choices such as cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts, to name a few. I think that should cover it for our fruits and vegetables. Now let's move on to shopping for protein-rich foods.
Hi, welcome to the Seafood and Meat Department. Protein is an important part of your diet. Protein functions as building blocks for bone, muscle, cartilage, skin, and blood. In other words, your body uses protein for growth and repair. Protein is found in a wide range of foods, including from meat, poultry, seafood, as well as from plant-based foods. The recommended amount of protein for the average adult is 5 to 6 servings or 5 to 6 ounces a day. A serving or portion of meat, chicken, seafood is 3 ounces, which is about the size of a deck of cards. For cancer survivors and prevention, it is recommended to choose lean proteins, mostly from poultry, seafood, and plant-based sources. Now let's talk about a few of these examples and what that looks like. Salmon is a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. These are healthy fats that help with inflammation. Grilling, baking, or poaching using your favorite marinade or spices and herbs are great ways to cook salmon. Ground turkey can be used as an alternative to red meat in sauces, tacos, or as burgers. Also, chicken breasts and boneless, skinless chicken thighs can be baked or grilled. And to make a crispy chicken without added fat, you could use an air fryer to cook both. Eggs are another source of protein, and 1 egg is 1 ounce of protein. Canned, packaged tuna, chicken, and salmon can be cost-effective and healthy alternatives to fresh and offer the same nutritional value. Just make sure to look for low sodium or no sodium options. Now let's talk about some plant-based proteins. Beans, either canned or dried, can be used in salads or as a side dish. A half a cup of beans can contain 6 to 8 grams of protein per serving, depending on the type of bean. A serving of beans is 1/4 cup. Here's a cost savings tip. Buy store brand canned beans. Store brands are usually cheaper than brand names. Store brands and private label brands are not manufactured by the stores that sell them. Most are made by the same large companies that produce leading name brands, and these companies sell them to the store at lower cost and allow stores to put their own labels on them. Another plant-based protein is tofu. 1/4 cup of tofu equals 1 ounce or 1 nuts like walnuts, pecan, and almonds, along with seeds such as chia seeds, flax seeds, are good sources of protein and contain omega-3 fatty acids. Remember, these healthy fats help with inflammation. A serving of nuts and or seeds is 1/4 cup and equals 1 ounce. And 2 tablespoons of nut butter is 1 ounce or 1 serving. Lastly, I do want to talk about red meat. Lean cuts of red meat and pork can be part of a healthy diet. The American Institute for Cancer Research recommendation for red meat, pork, and lamb is 12 to 18 ounces a week. Look for 93% lean hamburger, flank steak, top sirloin, and for pork, look for tenderloin, A cost-saving tips for the meat and poultry is that you can buy larger packages of hamburger, which can be divided into halves or into thirds after buying, and then frozen separately. And the same can be done for family packs of chicken, breasts, or thighs. Now let's go meet Molly in the grain aisle.
Hi again, and welcome to the center aisles of the grocery store, where many of our grain foods are found. Whole grains and dietary fiber play a crucial role in protecting us against certain cancers, as well as weight gain, overweight, and obesity, which can all contribute to cancer risk. What are whole grains anyway? Whole grains contain the entire grain kernel, which is made up of 3 parts: the fiber-rich bran, the nutrient-packed germ, and the starchy endosperm. Whole grains are a good source of fiber, B vitamins, and phytonutrients. Examples of whole grains are brown rice, oats, quinoa, whole grain bread, and whole grain pasta, among other foods. Refined grains, such as white bread and white rice, have been processed to remove the fiber-rich bran and the nutrient-rich germ, leaving only the starchy endosperm. Refined grains were developed to give the products a finer texture and to improve the shelf life, but this processing removes many of the beneficial nutrients. Most refined grains are enriched with vitamins after processing, but they still lack the fiber, which is important for overall health and cancer prevention. So how do we determine a product as a whole grain? The best way to determine if the product contains whole grains is to look at the ingredients list. The ingredients are listed in order by weight. Look for the products with whole grains listed as the first or second ingredient. Examples of whole grains that might be listed as the ingredient include whole wheat, whole rye, whole oats or oatmeal, brown rice, buckwheat, millet, popcorn, and quinoa. You can also use the nutrition facts panel to guide you in making healthy food choices in the grain aisle. Here's how. First, you want to look at the servings per container and the serving size. That's because the information listed on the nutrition facts panel is based on one serving. Next, look at the calories and the nutrients listed below that. The percent daily value helps us over here on the right, helps us to determine whether a food is high or low in a nutrient. As a general rule, 20% or more of a nutrient is considered high, and 5% or less of a nutrient is considered low. When shopping for grain products, choose those that are at least 3 grams of dietary fiber per serving. The American Institute for Cancer Research recommends that adults consume at least 30 grams of dietary fiber each day as part of a healthy eating pattern to lower cancer risk. You can also use these label reading skills to select healthier for you cereals and snacks. Those that have more than 3 grams of dietary fiber and 0 added sugar are going to be your best bet. Here's where you can find the added sugar on the label. A few examples of nutritious snacks are popcorn, whole grain crackers, maybe paired with hummus, corn tortilla chips with fresh tomato salsa, whole grain toast with either avocado or maybe nut butter, homemade energy bites with old-fashioned oats, maybe a grain salad like tabbouleh. Sometimes whole grain products can be more expensive than refined grains, but there are some ways to overcome this. Here are a few cost-saving tips to keep in mind while shopping. Consider purchasing grains in larger quantities. Unit pricing, or cost per unit, makes for easier price comparisons among similar products in different size containers. Here, come take a look. Here we have whole grain brown rice in 2 different size packages. The first is 1 pound and it costs $1.69. The second package is 5 pounds and it costs $6.29. But if you notice the unit price, the 5-pound bag is $1.26 per pound, whereas the 1-pound bag is $1.69 per pound. So you would really benefit from buying a larger quantity of rice at a time. Also, store brand items are often cheaper than brand name products and can be just as nutritious. This is where that label reading can become very handy. If there's a particularly good sale on bread or other grains, consider purchasing extra to freeze for later. Hopefully these tips give you the knowledge you need to make healthy, budget-friendly choices when shopping for grains, including bread, cereals, and snack foods. Now let's meet up with Courtney in the dairy section.
So this brings us to the last section of the grocery store, the dairy department. We've talked with you today about ways to look for sale items and buy store brand products to keep costs down, and all of those tips apply to this section of the grocery store too. One thing to note about the dairy aisle is that many of the foods in this section of the store can provide good options when trying to manage side effects from your treatment. Sometimes when you're tired or not hungry, the more you have to chew, the less appealing a food is. When you have a dry mouth, sore mouth, or pain with swallowing, it's often easier to get calories and protein from soft, moist foods. And the dairy aisle offers many good options that fit this criteria, including yogurt, cheeses, cottage cheese, ragout, and different types of milk, as well as kefir probiotic yogurt drink. If you're struggling to gain or maintain weight, choose the whole milk and full fat options of these to maximize calories per bite. If your appetite is good and weight, you should be choosing the low fat or non-fat option to keep calorie intake down. Now, I know Molly showed you how to find the amount of added sugar and the nutrition labels of grain products, and you can use that same thing here for the dairy aisle. When we look at different yogurts, for example, the type of sugar can vary. If we look at a plain yogurt, the added grams of sugar are 0. Whereas if we get a yogurt that has some sugar added, there's actually 5 grams of added sugars in this yogurt versus a regular sugar yogurt, which contains 14 grams of added sugars in just this one container. So you can use these label reading tips to make a good choice when you're shopping for dairy products as well. Your best choice is going to be the one with the least amount of added sugar that you enjoy the taste of. And so maybe something to try is a plain yogurt where you add your own cinnamon and fruit, whether it's fresh fruit, canned fruit, or frozen fruit, to help add a touch of sweetness to that plain yogurt and make it more enjoyable. And then one last thing to consider when you're shopping for dairy is that some people are lactose intolerant and find that cow's milk dairy products can cause or worsen diarrhea. If this sounds like you, consider trying lactose-free products where the lactose is already broken down. We have an example right here. So your body doesn't have to do the work. And with this option, you're able to still get the naturally occurring protein and calcium content that you find in cow's milk with the benefit of less diarrhea. There are also many lactose-free plant-based milk alternatives on the market, including oat milk, almond milk, coconut milk, actually contain the protein and calcium that cow's milk does. So when shopping for these foods, make sure that you're choosing the fortified options to increase their nutritional benefit. Well, that finishes our last section of the store. We hope that you'll be able to use these tips next time you find yourself in the dairy aisle of the grocery store. Thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Remember that registered dietitians are part of your Milo Care team. If you have any questions about general healthy eating or are having side effects from treatment and want to discuss ways to maximize your nutrition intake, please let your care team know that you would like to speak to a registered dietitian.
Now we'll head over to our colleague Bridget's kitchen, where she'll show us how to prepare a healthy recipe and a low-cost, high-calorie, high-protein shake.
Hi, my name is Bridget Komosky, and I'm a registered dietitian at Smilo Cancer Center at St. Francis. I'm honored to be a part of Cancer Survivorship Month and help you all with healthy food ideas and recipes and with this cooking demo. So today we're going to make a summer veggie pasta salad, and there's a bunch of different swaps that we can make too, so we'll talk about that as we go. And then the second recipe that we're going to make is a fruit smoothie, which also has a bunch of different swaps that we can do and ideas that we can talk about. So let's get started. Okay, here we have our food ingredients for the pasta salad. A box of pasta, the recipe says half a box, but you could also do 1 box, that would be okay, depending how much you want to make. Salt and pepper, dressing of choice, this is just an oil-based balsamic dressing. 1 can of black beans, and then here we have our veggie parts of the pasta dish. 4 cups of arugula, 1 head of broccoli, a pint of grape tomatoes, some red onion with no measurement, just kind of for flavor, and a half a cup of black olives. Okay, so while we're waiting for the pasta to cook, I just boiled water, dropped the pasta in. 1 note about the recipe is the broccoli I separated from the rest of the vegetables because just the last probably 2 minutes of the pasta cooking, we'll dump the broccoli in there, let it go for 2 minutes so it cooks it, and then drop it all together in the colander, so then you cook the pasta done at the same time and the broccoli. So that's the only difference. Everything else is separate and in this bowl. So while we're waiting for the pasta to cook, I want to talk about the recipe and how it relates to cancer survivorship. So these recipes, the pasta salad and the smoothie that we'll make later, are helpful for individuals from the time of diagnosis through treatment and after treatment. So very helpful. There's a lot of swaps that you can make in terms of foods that we'll get into. So in terms of when someone has maybe poor taste or off taste, vinegar-based things can really help. So that balsamic vinegar dressing and Italian dressing used in the pasta salad, even just some sort of marinade that would go well with a pasta dish would really work. Anything, again, vinegar-based. So that's a nice option for anything that if food is not tasting as good as it used to. A lot of times meat can be off-putting. A lot of patients have expressed that. It can have like more of a waxy mouthfeel. And again, then kind of people veering away from meat for that reason. There's lots of plant proteins, for example, the black beans that are in this dish. You could also do chickpeas, you could do lentils, you could do another type of bean. So by no means you have to do black beans, but sometimes, again, if meat is not tasting great, you have a lot of plant protein options. Also nuts, seeds, you could do tofu, quinoa, again, really plant protein forward, which is nice. And if you are eating chicken or beef, I mean, you could put anything in a pasta salad. So some shrimp, chunks of chicken. So again, really good protein source that way. And you have all those plant protein options too to mix in. You can even do both. Moving on, there could be some GI upset with active treatment. So diarrhea, constipation, kind of oscillating between the two, and trying to like pick your battles when you're dealing with each one. In terms of constipation, this can be really, really helpful. Broccoli, dark green leafy vegetables, so like the arugula, spinach, kale, you could use any of those in here. Again, the broccoli. You could also go the route of a whole wheat pasta with the pasta salad, which would give you more fiber to help with that. And again, if you added those seeds and nuts, that would also give you fiber and help in that constipation piece. So anything like that kind of would be completely appropriate. So lots of options to help. Okay, so now we're adding just the broccoli in the last 2-ish minutes of the pasta cooking. So literally just adding it right into the boiling water with the almost cooked pasta. Just mix it around and then just let it boil for another 2 minutes, and that will cook the broccoli, make it soft. So let it sit for another 2 minutes and then just drain it all together. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about active treatment and how this dish might help with some active treatment symptoms. In terms of non-active treatment on the survivorship continuum, this is also a great option because it's protein packed, especially with those black beans, or if you swapped or you added chickpeas too, or you even put some pieces of chicken or shrimp or cheese, you can really get a good source of protein. And you can get a ton of fiber. So the whole wheat pasta, if you chose that, all the vegetables that are in here, lots of fiber, lots of phytonutrients that are cancer fighting and help protect against certain cancers. This dish can also be allergy friendly, so it can be gluten-free, made with gluten-free pasta. You could not use cheese if it needs to be dairy-free. Lots of different options to do that with. And then also it can be very plant protein based. So there's just tons of options for those beans, those chickpeas, those lentils, which has been shown, a plant protein diet has really been shown to help protect against certain types of cancers and limiting some of our meat consumption. And the dish is just very versatile. You can use frozen veggies that you have, any veggies that are about to kind of go bad in the fridge that you need to use up. You can put any and all in a pasta salad. So that's kind of nice, just so you don't feel like you're reinventing the wheel heading to the grocery store. Okay, so here we have our end result. It was just all the veggies in here with the 1 cup of dressing, and then I rinsed and drained the pasta with the broccoli that we put in towards the end of the boiling, and it's all in here. So it's very hot right now. So what I would do is, put it in the fridge for an hour or so before serving, or just, can stay in the fridge up until you serve it. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that recipe and that it will be useful for you. And the next recipe that we're going to do is a fruit smoothie. So for our second recipe, we're going to do a fruit smoothie, which also has a lot of different swaps, food swaps that we can make that we'll talk about, just like the pasta salad did. And it also has a lot of, it's relevant to cancer survivorship, which we'll talk about as well. So our ingredients for this particular one we're gonna make, we just have vanilla yogurt, some flaxseed, blueberries are in here, frozen blueberries, frozen raspberries, and then I have just 2 different types of peanut butter just to give it some more grams of fat, especially if you're using a non-fat yogurt, then you can get some fats from here and from the flaxseed. But so that's the smoothie that we're gonna make, and then later we'll talk about different swaps that can be done for your own personal needs. So the beauty of a smoothie, what we'll talk about now, are all just a ton of different alternatives that you can use. So we'll start with the base, in place of the yogurt. So you can use an allergy-friendly yogurt like an almond milk or a coconut milk yogurt. If someone is dairy-free, you can just use any flavor yogurt, vanilla, strawberry. Kind of the best nutrition-wise would be a plain unsweetened yogurt. A Greek yogurt would have more protein as compared to a regular yogurt, and unsweetened is usually definitely the way to go, less added sugar, and then you can do ingredients to kind of sweeten it up and add flavor. You could also not use yogurt at all, and your base could be milk, almond milk, something along those lines. So it would definitely be a little more liquidy. You could add ice to make it more of a smoothie, but you don't have to use yogurt if you don't like that. Also for a base, in terms of getting extra calories, if that is something that you need, is ice cream. Or frozen yogurt that would pack a lot more calories into the smoothie. Other swaps that could be used are the veggies and fruits. So we use fruits in this smoothie. You could really do any fruit or veggie, frozen, not frozen. The options are endless. So any of those options are great. So it kind of makes it fun. You can just do a bunch of different fruits and veggies, whatever you like. And then I like to think of other things as like the toppings. So you could do little additions like coconut flakes, coconut oil if you needed more calories in your smoothie, flaxseed, chocolate chips, chia seeds, nuts and seeds. You can blend all that together into a smoothie if you wanted, some different flavors. It might have a different texture if you blend in nuts or something, but can be kind of fun. Almond butter, peanut butter, cashew butter, sunflower seed butter, any of that kind of those toppings or those spreads are great options. So you can get really super creative. All right, so now we're going to talk about how a smoothie can assist people on the cancer survivorship continuum. So for an active treatment, a smoothie recipe can be super helpful because it can kind of tackle a lot of different symptoms that come up. First being possible loss of appetite, just foods not seeming as appetizing as usual. Sometimes drinking something can be helpful, easier and more appetizing. Another symptom that a smoothie can assist with is loss of taste or taste change. Very tart fruit can bring out flavors, so you could use cranberries, anything that's like pretty acidic. Cranberries, even strawberries, I guess, are kind of tart, and you can use that in your smoothie to really bring out some sort of a taste. Also, just frozen fruit in general, since most of it is kind of tart, can help with loss of taste or taste change or things tasting off. So again, smoothie, nice option for that. With treatment, things might taste bitter, acidic, metallic. A smoothie can possibly help with that. You could use things like cantaloupe, watermelon, might kind of tackle those mouth tastes. Also mint and basil, so you can even do like a watermelon basil smoothie, which is kind of something that does go together. So using, again, cantaloupe, watermelon, mint, or basil can help with like things tasting very acidic and metallic. If someone was struggling with constipation, they could throw a lot of berries in their smoothie. So strawberries, blackberries, blueberries really help in that respect. You could put some flaxseed in there, apple or pear. So those types of fiber, would help with the constipation. If someone was struggling with diarrhea on their treatment, they could use more bananas, mangoes, those aren't going to provide such an effect that would help with constipation. You might want to stick more with like using the bananas and mango. So you can use, again, different options. And again, even with dark leafy greens, you get a lot of fiber with that. So if an individual was constipated, they could throw some spinach or kale in their smoothie, which would definitely change the color and the taste, but kind of interesting to try. Also, what's nice about a smoothie is it requires kind of no cooking. It doesn't really smell. So sometimes strong aromas that might come from cooking, especially hot foods, could be bothersome. So this requires technically no cooking and not really any smells. So that's kind of nice. With some treatment regimens, there can be a cold intolerance where the individual would need to consume food and fluid at room temperature. So we would think a smoothie is not the best for that, of course, right out of the blender with the ice or out of the fridge, but you could let it come to room temperature and it would still taste fine. You might need to use a spoon to kind of just mix it up. Once it's at room temperature, you could just not use frozen fruit, just use fresh fruit. Yogurt kind of gets to room temperature pretty quickly, and that would be safe to use with lots of options that this smoothie can help during active treatment, and it can be a nice option. And again, remember, you can really doctor up a smoothie to be pretty high calorie, really energy dense, lots of protein, in order to even almost meet your needs through fluids for a short period of time, hopefully, and until maybe appetite comes back and you might be, someone's able to eat, increase their solid food intake. And then non-active treatment on the survivorship continuum, a smoothie can definitely still be useful. It's protein packed, and you get your fruits and veggies in, micronutrients like those vitamins and minerals, and fiber, just for good GI health. And again, kind of cancer fighting fruits and vegetables. You can get omega-3s from the flaxseed and healthy fats. So you're just kind of overall choosing that healthy lifestyle on that survivorship continuum. So useful for non-active treatment as well. In terms of closing remarks, again, this was really fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And just a few points to leave you with. Food and cooking is flexible. If some of these recipes did not speak to you and or you just weren't into the ingredients, it can be 100% flexible. You by no means have to have these recipes. There's ways you can tweak them and to meet your own personal needs. And what I want to stress is that there are dietitians at Smilow Cancer Center. We are here for you, and please ask your treatment team or your nurse that you're assigned to, and we can meet with you and have that consult. Thank you so much for listening and joining in, and have a great night.
All right, well, those were definitely some amazing videos and suggestions. I hope everyone is able to learn at least a few new tips and tricks for shopping and cooking on a budget and to support healthy survivorship. We did get some good questions in. I'll do is I'll go through the questions and then our expert panel will help to answer them. Let's see. One of the first questions was how many carbs are in a half cup of beans? So would anybody like to discuss beans? Any takers, Laura?
Yes. Hi, everybody. So there's a little bit of variation depending on which kind of bean we're talking about. But generally speaking, when you look at about a half cup of beans, that's about 15 grams of carbohydrate, which if you're counting carbohydrates and a little familiar with diabetes-friendly ways of eating, that looks like about one carb count or one choice if you're using that system. So again, about 15 grams of carbs and about a half cup of beans.
The one thing I would add is that if you are concerned about carbohydrate intake, beans also have fiber in them, which helps slow down how quickly those carbohydrates get absorbed. So it's a different kind of carbohydrate than if you were to just look at, a white flour snack cracker or something like that.
Also great plant-based protein. All right, our next question, is there any benefit to eating by your blood type?
I can start on this.
Go ahead, Laura.
I can start on this one. So unfortunately not. The short answer is that there is no reliable scientific information or evidence to support it. And that means that there's no good scientific evidence to support that eating according to your blood type and making any dietary changes related to that is no evidence that it is going to prevent or treat or reduce the risk of any medical condition. That's the short answer. And then I'll say, kind of the longer answer can be that, there's so many different ways of eating. And I come across very few people who ask me about this particular pattern of eating or who are actually following it in some way. But hopefully we want you to feel like the information you got in that video gives you the tools to analyze diets that come up for yourself. We really encourage you, we want you to be curious and be skeptical and ask lots of questions. Whenever you come across a diet that's asking you to remove several food groups at a time, or a diet that is asking you to remove many of these health promoting foods that you heard about in the video, then we want you to be skeptical of it. And in my experience, a lot of the communications that I see around the blood type diet are often pretty restrictive, and they leave you with a pretty narrow list of foods. And they often take away many of these foods that, again, we know are health promoting because there's so much evidence for supporting survivorship when you look at some of these health promoting foods. So
I think that was very well said. I'll just add that, to expand on the idea that, when you're experiencing side effects from treatment, if you are in that active phase of treatment, it's hard sometimes to find foods that you can tolerate. And so to further restrict the foods that you're allowing yourself to eat can be of disservice. And really what the literature supports and what is evidence-based is getting, as many colors as you can. They say, primarily plant-based diet. It doesn't mean you have to be a vegetarian, the colors as you can from your plants. And all of those great colors, as we said in the video, are going to provide different phytonutrients and can act in different ways. So whether that's providing a source of antioxidants or, work differently to help keep your healthy cells healthy. It's really important to keep your diet as expansive as possible, especially again, when you're struggling with some of those side effects from treatment.
Another question that came in kind of related to plant-based eating, eating the rainbow, different colors, was whether or not it's good to eat foods that are not organic. So I can take this one. The short answer is that no, it's not necessary to buy all organic. There's different reasons why you would. We know that organic farming produces food with lower pesticide residues, not zero. Makes better use of land, resources, treatment of laborers and people who are doing the farming, but there's no evidence to support that organic fruits and vegetables will have any more of a beneficial effect in terms of cancer risk than fruits and vegetables that are grown conventionally or non-organic. So the goal really is to get the produce, whether it's organic or not, and to focus on variety, getting different colors, so you're getting all of those different phytonutrients that we know are really protective. Yes, Sue.
And If you're interested in minimizing pesticide exposure, the Environmental Working Group does a great list called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. And we can put up the information about how to access that list on the website following the treatment, following this talk.
Great. There is a question about the smoothies in the video and the fact that a lot of fruit high in sugar are used, and what would be recommended for people who are trying to keep their sugar and carbohydrate intake low. And is there any type of chocolate that's low in sugars to get that chocolatey taste instead?
Cocoa is great for adding chocolate taste with low carbs. When we talk about including fruits, the carbohydrate in fruits is indeed technically a sugar, but you noticed that all the products that were used were unsweetened fruits. If you want to minimize carbs from fruits, then put in smaller amounts of carbs from fruits. And vegetables, many of the vegetables that were talked about are lower in carbs if you're interested in limiting carbs in a smoothie.
I'll also add that you can find chocolate extract. It's real similar to vanilla extract, in one of those smaller bottles, like where the spices tend to be in a store. And it's definitely less sweet than chocolate, but it can add that chocolatey flavor. So that can be an interesting thing to try too.
Great suggestions. Just trying to toggle back and forth between the Q&A and the chat to make sure I don't miss anything. There was a comment made that it can be difficult to shop and cook and have the energy to do all of these things, especially during active treatment. So I guess, are there any suggestions anyone would like to give for fatigue?
Yeah, we come across that often. And I think, the idea is to keep foods on hand that require little to no preparation. And so that's where those yogurts are a good source of protein. You can keep those on hand. Any kind of nuts or seeds that you can kind of pick on, keep those on hand. Peanut butter and crackers, cheese and crackers can really add calories without requiring much preparation. Even, microwavable ones out there now. And so if it's a matter of having that food be ready in 2 minutes, as opposed to the 15 or so that it might take to cook more of a meal, 15 minutes or more. So that's another option to not rule out. If you're really trying to get calories in and you're tired, sometimes it's easier to drink your calories. And so in terms of some of the liquid nutrition stuff, a lot of different ones on the market. There's, generic brands and name brands and different versions of those exist. So if it's easier to just twist the top off a bottle and drink 350 calories that way, then that's an option as well.
I would also add that, from my experience with a lot of different people, there's at least a short period of time where they've kind of bounced back from their treatment and they do have the energy to shop and cook before the next cycle starts. So it can help to plan ahead if you have the ability and the time to make a couple things, have it ready to go in the fridge or freezer so that it's there and ready when you want it, but you're too tired to put in, all of the legwork.
And not to be afraid to ask friends or neighbors or relatives to lend a hand. I'm sure that you would do the same thing for them in a similar situation.
Absolutely. We got a question about the best way to wash fruit and vegetables. really, you don't have to do anything special. Rinsing under running water would be best. You know, if you have something like leafy greens or lettuce, separating it leaf by leaf and washing, you know, to get out any dirt or, you know, anything that might be on there really is best. You know, looking at your fruit and making sure that it's not, you know, bruised or, you know, already moldy. If you have some raspberries, those can get, you know, a little tricky relatively quickly. But there's no, you know, special rinse or anything like that that you'd have to use to properly clean your fruits and vegetables.
And I'll add that primarily applies if you're going to eat it raw. If you're going to cook the produce, then that's likely to kill any of the bacteria that might be on it.
Good point. Is it good to eat fruits or food that's not organic? I believe we touched on this one already, that, you know, that's absolutely okay. If your funds don't allow, you absolutely don't have to run out and buy everything organic. You know, conventionally grown juice is, you know, just as nutritious, will have the same phytonutrients and the same protective properties as, you know, organic. There's no evidence to show that organic is better, will have, you know, better health outcomes or lower cancer risk in particular. While we're talking more about fruits and vegetables, what are good ones to reduce inflammation? Anybody want to tackle that?
I mean, there's a variety of them. That just kind of comes down to, again, eating that variety. The other thing that reduces inflammation is omega-3 fatty acids. So whether that's coming from, you know, nuts and seeds, olive oil, you know, some almonds and seafood products. So it's not just fruits and vegetables for those antioxidants or for inflammatory reduction. Those other foods can help as well.
And I can add that cooking with fresh ginger, garlic, onion, all of those whole foods contain naturally occurring compounds that there's more and more research coming out about these now, but those in their whole food form, you know, using them, incorporating them into your cooking, they have some really supportive, naturally occurring compounds in them when it comes to your immune system and reducing extra or excess inflammation. Because we get a lot of questions often about, you know, taking those things in a supplement form, but we actually know that, you know, through having that through your food directly is so beneficial.
Okay. We have a question that just it's a little difficult to answer because protein recommendations would be individualized for the person. You know, there isn't one round amount, you know, for everyone. So I apologize, I can't give you an exact answer to that, but you know, I would say that for most people, if you're having a protein source with each of your meals, you know, chances are you're getting pretty close to what you'd need. I don't know if anybody would advise anything else there.
Yeah, I mean, as Kim said, it is pretty individualized, and we can repeat the idea of there are dietitians at each of your cancer centers. And so, you know, if you want more specific numbers, you should always feel free to ask for a nutrition consult. And that it can be very customized for you. If we were to throw out kind of a general number, if you're in active treatment, it would be about 1.2-ish grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is how we calculate it. So if you take your weight in pounds and divide by 2.2 and then multiply that number by 1.2, that would give you a ballpark goal of what you're looking for.
You didn't know you were getting math homework tonight, did you?
A little technical, yeah. But again, that was your weight in pounds divided by 2.2 to get your kilograms, and then multiply that by 1.2. If you're in cancer survivorship, it's more likely to be around the 0.8 to 1.0 grams per kilogram. But again, a lot of things factor into that number. So
Someone added a comment that for smoothies, using a scoop or two of a chocolate whey powder or collagen powder is a great way to add flavor and a little bit more sweetness. It'll also obviously add a little bit of protein for you too, which is always good. Thank you for that comment. If you have estrogen receptor breast cancer, would you eat organic dairy to avoid the hormones?
The hormones in milk are useful for cows, but humans, when humans drink milk, the hormones in the milk are digested like any other protein and never affect the hormone receptors in humans. So choosing organic or non-organic milk in terms of the hormone content would not be necessary.
Does watercress have a lot of protein?
No.
Unfortunately, no. I wish it did though.
So watercress with some hard-boiled eggs in a salad would have protein, or watercress salad with some lovely nuts would have protein, but watercress by itself, like most leafy greens, isn't a rich source of protein.
Good fiber and other nutrients though. And what's the best way to eat spirulina?
Laura, you look like
Sorry, yes. You stumped us.
wheels are
now.
turning over there.
Yes. Trying to give some creative answers that would appeal to a broad number of folks. The first thing I think of, and I think an application you often see it in, is in a smoothie, actually. And so it can often blend in, and folks will often, I'm curious if the person who asked it, has tasted spirulina before. It does have a flavor all its own that, in my opinion. And so you can put it in a smoothie and it does hide some of the strong flavor to it. And I think, and spirulina is a good source of a lot of B vitamins. It has some iron. I think it has some protein as well. I'm trying to think of what else beyond smoothies. I think possibly in a pudding, like when some folks are trying to put together, like if you're trying to avoid dairy because you're sensitive to it for certain reasons, and you're trying to put together like a pudding that's made out of avocado and tofu and maybe some cocoa powder, things like that. Sometimes I see spirulina in that. What other ideas do folks have?
Do you think it would work well in a recipe with some spinach? Like, do you think that would help mask that flavor some, or not necessarily? I don't know. I wonder about, like, I don't know.
I think that's possible.
Think about it in like a pasta salad. Think about that other recipe, if we have some spinach in there with a little of the spirulina and some of the Italian or vinegar-based dressing.
I'm just being silly.
Folks should share in the chat, actually, if you've found a way that you've enjoyed adding spirulina for foods or beverages. Share some ideas with everybody.
I'm personally not a big fan, so that's why I'm having a very hard time coming up with ways to use it. We're all different though, right? Is there a program like MAP, M-A-P, for reduced drug prices that provides lower costs for foods from supermarkets and grocery stores?
I mean, I think there's, the SNAP program, and but that's different from MAP assistance.
Yeah, so I perhaps related and hopefully helpful. So one is at certain depending on which county or region you live in, you may live near a farmer's market or a grocery store that participates in a produce prescription program of some kind. And that usually means that the store or the farmer's market is partnering with another organization or possibly with a hospital of some kind, and is offering some reduction specifically to encourage some price reductions to specifically encourage people to increase their purchasing and intake of fruits and vegetables and produce specifically. Sometimes that's an option to look for in your area. And then also, like Courtney was saying, there is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, that was formerly food stamps. And if you are eligible for that, and if you know you have that or your family has access to that, then sometimes there are promotions at a particular grocery store where if you're shopping with your SNAP dollars, you might be able to get something like, 2 for the price of 1. Like they may have certain promotions or deals like that when it comes to fruits and vegetables. But again, that would be only for folks who are eligible for the SNAP program and are using those dollars to buy their groceries.
The other thing I'm thinking is the insurance company's coverage of oral nutrition supplements is few and far between, but Medicaid in particular does cover oral nutrition supplements. So with a prescription, the cost of those can be covered. So that's something to ask your caregiver about as well, if you think that you'd benefit from that.
Something else I would suggest, if you have a follow-up appointment coming up, or, you're going to be in clinic soon, asking to speak with the social worker who covers your area. They're typically very good about knowing about different resources, what you may or may not qualify for, and helping you through that process. So they're a really great resource for that.
And I don't think that they can necessarily cover grocery bills, but there are funds out there to cover other bills, which can then put more money in your pocket to help pay for the groceries.
Can you address the soy mystery? My understanding is natural soy is healthy, i.e. edamame, tofu, etc., but processed soy products are not healthy, like soybean oil, soy lecithin, soy protein. Is this correct?
It's partly correct that the whole soy products are healthy. I am not sure what the idea that soy oil is not healthy. Certainly, it doesn't have the benefits as of protein and other nutrients that soy products would have. And soy, what was the other food that was deemed to be unhealthy?
Soy lecithin and soy protein.
Soy protein, we used to think that overprocessed soy might be higher in isoflavones, and that might be a problem. That's no longer what most people would say. Certainly, whole soy foods carry a wider range of nutrients than a heavily processed form of soy. I'm trying to think of soy lecithin. Soy lecithin, if someone's allergic to soy, then probably they wouldn't want soy lecithin in their foods, but soy lecithin by itself is present in very small quantities in some foods, is added to some foods, but I'm not aware of particular dangers associated with soy lecithin. Is anybody else?
Not dangers. I think it's just a more processed oil. So when you can choose things with olive oil, they have more of the, more beneficial fats in them compared to the soy.
You are correct, though, that, whole soy foods are definitely okay in moderation. A lot of the fear in the past really came about before we really understood that you know, how humans process soy and the isoflavones, or kind of the soy, blanking on the word.
Phytoestrogens.
Thank you.
Phytoestrogens. Yeah.
How we process those, and that they really don't have an effect on the body like regular human hormones or estrogen do. And there's actually some research to suggest that soy can actually be protective. So quite the opposite. So if you like edamame, tofu, soy milk, okay to have, you know, a couple servings a day for sure. A good option for protein in a smoothie as well, since we talked a lot about smoothie options. I'm looking to keep a good amount of protein in my diet, but low carbs, and keep away from dairy. I do not eat meat. And then someone else had asked, is meat necessary? So I'm not sure, when you say meat, does that mean to you just red meat like beef and pork, or does that include chicken and fish? Are we talking more of a vegan diet? I'm not quite sure where to go with the answer, but we can talk about every piece of it. The general recommendation for red meat would be no more than 12 to 18 ounces per week. So that would equate to, you know, up to a few servings a week, which in my opinion is more than I typically eat myself. But it is okay to have red meat if it's something that you like. Definitely chicken, fish, turkey, eggs, yogurt, other dairy products, beans, you know, nuts, if those are things that you like, will definitely be leaner protein sources, and more plant-based, obviously, if you're going the beans and nuts route, which we just learned are very, you know, nutritious and helpful. But is meat necessary to get your protein, I'm assuming, is the question? No, you don't have to have meat necessarily to get enough protein. I hope I answered your question. I don't know if anybody has anything to add.
I would just say that if you're not eating meat, you would just want to make sure that you're getting a lot of other protein sources. And so making sure that you are adding those beans and those nuts and seeds, and including those as a way. Fruits and vegetables, or vegetables in particular, have a small amount of protein in them, but you really have to add some of those other foods, you know, the tofu and tempeh, and seitan is another one that can help get that protein intake up as well. So being creative about making sure you're getting enough protein if you're not eating animal-based proteins.
And if you choose to avoid milk for whatever reason, soy milk is a rich source of protein, the equivalent to the cow's milk. If you choose other milk, non-dairy milks made with pea protein would be a good source of protein. By comparison, non-dairy milks that are largely oat-based or coconut-based, rice-based, would have substantially less protein. But of course, check the label to see the product that you've chosen, to see how it measures up.
And I often get asked about almond milk, thinking about that list of non-dairy milks. And since almond is one of the, you know, we think of that in the category of nuts and seeds. And so it's often assumed that, you know, that almond milk will be a good source of protein, but it rarely is. So almond milk might be a good source for keeping you hydrated and getting some fluid, or if you like the flavor of it, that's great. And know that almond milk, most often you're not getting a good source of protein from the almond milk, unless, just like Sue said, you know, looking at the label and seeing, because maybe they've added some pea protein to it or something like that.
Great reminder. She eats tuna and fish with scales, no chicken, no pork, no meat. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Next question, is collagen okay for someone who had estrogen positive breast cancer?
I believe it should be fine. Has anyone heard differently?
No,
No.
I guess not a source of protein that I often recommend.
Okay. So it looks like that covered so far all of the questions that have come in. I'm just scrolling to make sure I didn't miss anything. Someone, it looks like, did share in the chat a link for Misfits Market, which is an option for a subscription service to get access to fresh fruits and vegetables at a discounted price. I can't speak to this. I haven't used them myself, but I do know a good amount of people who have, and I have seen their ads. I don't know if anyone has used them before and can comment on that.
I'm a little familiar with them, and I think what is supposed to make them unique is that they're often they're rescuing produce, in quotes, like rescuing produce that whose quality is slightly lower because of the cosmetic aspects of it. So it may not be sellable at the typical stores, but they're able to sell it to, directly to customers at a reduced price. I think that's the idea. And my only thought or possible concern about that service can be that if the quality of the produce is, it's good to know when you're using a service like that where they're really advertising that the produce might be less sellable to stores. I think food safety comes to my mind. So I think it's fair to assume that the produce you get from a service like that might have a shorter shelf life than the produce that you would buy at full price at a grocery store, for example. So it's just especially good to keep an eye on them, to store them depending on what it is, storing it in the refrigerator at a safe temperature, or keeping an eye on it if you're keeping it at room temperature on the counter, just to inspect it for, developing possible mold or things like that.
I think it's also worth reiterating here that, it doesn't have to be fresh produce that you're buying. If you can buy some frozen vegetables that are on sale for $1 a bag or whatever the sale is, it's a great way to stock up and keep those on hand. You can get some great options. I know they have the tri-colored peppers that come already sliced and ready to go. And it's a nice way to, lending itself back to the concern of fatigue and how do you manage that. Some of those bagged veggies have the work all done for you. And you can get them at a good cost. So don't overlook the value of that.
Mm-hmm. Another good strategy is to think about what's in season. Buying by the calendar is going to save you money. If you have a farm stand nearby and you can travel to the produce versus the produce traveling to the grocery store, you're going to get fresher produce. Chances are, if it's in season and it was grown, within, 10, 20 miles, it's going to be a little less expensive than if it traveled from somewhere farther away. Definitely in the winter months, we don't have very good produce around. Obviously it's cold out. So, frozen is definitely a good option and will still be just as nutritious. What are good fruits and vegetables that can help reduce inflammation?
I think we kind of answered this one. I did see that one pop up, and I have a table that I refer to sometimes. So for the sake of being more clear from our first answer, specific grapes and berries are a great source of antioxidants. Carotenoids, which are your orange colored stuff. So that's when we say eat the rainbow, just for an example, right? Your grapes and berries are going to be your purpley red kind of things. The carotenoids are your oranges. So carrots, pumpkins, tomatoes. So those are your reds, and those give antioxidants, anti-inflammatory flavonoids in teas, berries, oranges, lemons, tomatoes. Polyphenols reduce inflammation. So those are your herbs like cloves, oregano, thyme, sage, rosemary, and blueberries. So you can see that's kind of the foundation of why we say eat the rainbow, because there's such well-rounded sources from so many different foods. Just, you know, I guess for the intention of being a little more specific, hopefully that's helpful.
Unfortunately, there's no one fruit or vegetable that can do it all, I think is another important point. Really getting good variety is how you know that you're getting, you know, a variety of those different phytonutrients to help with inflammation.
But that being said, if your palate is narrow, you know, maybe there's not a single, maybe you don't like purple peppers or purple carrots or eggplant, but you really like purple grapes, you know, so you get your purple from the grapes. All hope's not lost. So as much as I think as people go through treatment, nutrition is such a, it's such a heavy burden, I think, you know, of all these symptoms that you're trying to manage and still eat healthfully and fuel your body with what it needs. And we see these numbers and being so just diligent about trying to find what that right thing is. And to some point, it's that right thing is whatever you can tolerate. You know, there's going to be times when those symptoms are so bad that all you can manage is that bar of chocolate. And if you can happen to have it with a handful of peanuts and and a banana, or, you know, it depends on where you are across the trajectory of treatment or not. But loosening up those diet restrictions can be really helpful sometimes too.
Absolutely.
And that's what our job is, kind of when we sit down with patients, we do our best to hear and really listen. So what is the taste change that you're experiencing? Are foods really salty? Are they really sweet? Our approach for our suggestions are going to be different based on, you know, that, plus taking into account what foods you like. You know, and so what we try and do in our role is to look at you as an individual and meet what your needs are. And some people feel really strongly about eliminating certain foods because of an article that they read, and maybe it's not supported by the literature, but that's what they feel strongly about. And so our job is to say, okay, you know, if that's what you value, then that's what we'll do we'll meet you there. So again, just a shout to use us, because I think we're helpful. We try to be helpful, and send you away with at least, you know, a practical tip or two that will work specifically for you. And that advice looks differently when your appetite is good, for sure. But we acknowledge that too.
All right, so I'm going to throw out a final call for any remaining questions while I acknowledge a comment that says excellent info on reduced cost possibilities. Last week there was a discussion on the cost of care, and it prompted this attendee to think of reducing food costs, not only drug and treatment costs. You know, I think this is really relevant to today as well, where the price of just about everything is going up and we're all feeling it. So, you know, using the tools that you've learned in the video from us, or perhaps, you know, asking to meet with the dietitian at your care center, you know, hopefully you found some good resources to help you do that.
And really using those label reading tips to not, you know, to make the best choice. And I know personally, when I go to the grocery store, my eye goes to the sale items. And so using those label reading tools for those new products that are on sale I never bought before, what does that label look like? And I think these videos will be posted online. So if you missed the video, or if you want to watch it again and kind of, you know, take note of things that you missed or pause as you go along the way, definitely do that. But using those label reading tips and not to overlook those store brands. There's some good products out there that are just the generic store brand products. So
the links to tonight's session, the videos and all of that are posted at the Yale Cancer Center YouTube channel, and those links are in the chat box if you haven't yet seen those. And it looks like we don't have any other questions that came in, unless there's anything anybody else would like to add.
It was a pleasure to be here. Keep up the efforts that are at home that you guys are doing to eat as healthy as you're able to and find the foods that you tolerate best. And if we can be of help in any way, don't hesitate. You know, it's not an easy job eating when you're going through treatment and cooking for people going through treatment.
Yes. Be kind and patient with yourself and use the resources that you have that we've talked about, and that includes us too.
We're all dietitians because we love talking about food. So, so please come and talk to food about us with your questions, things that you've read online and you're wondering about, things that your friends told you and you're kind of thinking, that's what we're here for.
All right, thank you everyone, and we wish you well.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye everybody.